wrong.
So should I welcome everybody?
Okay.
Should I do it? Or you're gonna always say what the,
You can call the meeting to order, and then I'll read the.
I'd like to welcome everyone to the third Zoom meeting of the Town of Mamaroneck Zoning Board of Appeals. And Lisa, can you follow up with what has to be said?
Yes, until further notice, due to public health and safety concerns relating to COVID-19, this August 19th zoning board meeting will not be meeting in person in accordance with the governor's executive order 202.1 and any extension thereof. This meeting is being held remotely via video conferencing, Zoom, and a transcript will be available at a later date. Also, until further notice, public hearings will be held pursuant to the governor's executive order 202.15 and any extension thereof. And for each public hearing, there will be an email address that you can send comments to, and those will be looked at and read into the record.
So on tonight meeting, the first case and second case has been held off. Is that correct?
Right.
So we're starting with case number 3, 4 Blossom Terrace.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Unless you want to do the minutes first.
Do the minutes now. Jonathan?
I need to do the minutes.
Accept the minutes as presented.
Actually, sorry, I forgot to ask Francine for, this will make it easier on the transcript. Can you please call the roll so
Okay.
that we can confirm there's a quorum?
Arthur Wexler, Chairman.
Just say here.
Yes.
Irene O'Neill.
Here.
Stephen Marsh.
Here.
Carol Miller. Carol, you have to hit the mute button. Bottom of the screen.
Here.
Thank you. Jonathan Sachs.
Here.
All right, now we can do the minutes.
I would make a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
Second.
Vote.
In favor, okay.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Any opposed or abstained?
Those are the only 3 members that are here that were at the meeting.
Right, so Arthur, you abstain, I assume, correct?
Yes.
Arthur abstains and Carol abstains.
And I abstained because I was also not there.
Okay. So we're starting, want me to call it? Application number 3, case number 3186. Branco and Levy. Public hearing. Application of Branco and Lackavid requesting a variance to replace an old shed on the premises located at 4 Blossom Terrace and known on the tax assessment map as block 403, lot 31.
Make a motion to open public hearing.
Second.
Second.
You guys are, I can't tell. I only see 2 people there. 1.5 people. Okay, you want to state your names and state your case, what you're asking for?
It's Jeannie Lukasevic and
And what are you what are you people are looking to legalize?
The existing shed we had in place that was replaced.
And it's like, do you have your survey where it's with you, in front of you?
We do. Yes, it's here. We do.
And you reason that you were putting it in this location, or you put it in this location?
Well, there was an existing shed that in the same location. So what we did is just replace the old shed that was in disarray. And we installed it in the same location that it's been, from our understanding, it's been there for over 20 years, the old one.
I rode by today and it looked like, and I could be wrong, that the shed was very close to the wooden fence that was separating you from your adjacent property. And here it says that it's 5.5 feet away?
From the property line. Correct. I think the fence is a
Yeah, the
little,
fence, we put that fence up.
So your fence is not on, your
It-
fence is land side of the, your land, of the property line then?
correct.
Right.
And I can't really see, I have to get a magnifier what. And it's 8 feet from the Blossom Terrace property line, is that correct?
Correct.
Is that anyone, is there any comments about this location?
Yeah, is the shed the same height as it was before or, not?
No, it's a little bit taller. I don't know. It's a little bit taller, yeah.
Yeah, I had walked around the back, corner, and from the house that faces the back of your property, it's, very visible, despite the fairly high fence. So, were you planning to do anything to, shield it from
Oh,
view?
yeah, we already planted some plants
Okay.
that are growing and we're going to plant some more, but
Is there room for them between the fence and the shed?
yes.
There's actually room on the outside of the fence itself, which is still the property line. That's why we actually put the fence
Closer
inside of our property so we can actually put some bushes or
on either side.
planters.
All right, so you haven't planted them there yet?
Not as of yet, no.
And what kind of plantings are you looking to plant?
Well, we were looking to put some like tall bushes that grow pretty much.
And which
but-
one did we? Because that's a big wonder.
Yeah, but that's on.
How much land do you have, do you think, from that fence to your property line?
I think it's about almost 2 feet. So we were actually going to work with the neighbor on 7 Blossom Terrace to see pretty much what they would like to see put there. We don't just want to just put something that, we want something to be pleasing for her as well. So
Well, since she's the one to be looking at it, that.
correct. I mean, it's not visible from anywhere else, I don't believe.
Can I ask how you actually know your property line? Because I didn't see a stake out there. What I see from the property behind it at 7 Blossom is it's actually macadam running all the way up to a cobblestone curb that's there. You believe that the neighbor is actually encroaching with their driveway on your property?
No, it's actually a dirt line. It's like about 2 feet of, it used to be a stake there, I guess from the bank survey. When it was done, I mean, it's probably been removed because it was overgrown pretty much with old trees and growth that was there because that whole shed was pretty much engulfed with like overburden of.
Yeah.
Right, because we're not seeing on this survey a fence that shows that it's set in from the property line.
Yeah, the survey is set.
Jonathan, I am seeing that
79.
there's there's asphalt coming over the property line. You look
I
close.
didn't hear that.
I'm sorry. I am seeing on there that there is some asphalt that comes over the property line. It looks-
Blacktop, 1.2 feet.
So I would think that the fence has got to be, right, it's got to be on the other, it can't be in, it's probably not in the blacktop, the asphalt.
It's not.
No, it's not.
You realize that you're gonna have to present a survey of where this is. Even though you wrote on here 10 feet, 12 feet, it's not an actual survey. It's not you put those dimensions in. And is that correct? Since
Yes, in order to get your LOC on this, for us to close out the permit, we will need an as-built survey. And that is because you're coming from, you're getting a zoning variance, so we have to make sure that it meets what the variance says.
Richard, you're not very clear when you speak, at least from my point.
Sorry, I have a very bad microphone. Does that help at all if I?
That's a little better.
A little better.
So you do need to have a as-built survey in order to close out the permit, showing the location you have, because you're getting a variance from the dimensions, required dimensions. So we do need to make sure that it is where we're saying it is.
Oh,
where-
okay.
If the board allows you to do it.
So it's pretty much like a stake survey, like just order a stake survey or,
It would be a drawing, you would get us a drawing. So, I mean, you don't have to have your whole property done if you could talk to the surveyor and they can just do that corner, but I don't know what the difference, you can work that out with a surveyor.
Okay.
As an option, this is built already.
Correct.
You might want to adjourn this meeting and get that survey, because if that survey shows that you're closer to the property lines than you're indicating, you'll have to go through another variance.
Okay.
So the question is, what happens if he gets that survey, Richard? And it shows it that it is not.
Well, it's not a house, so it's not the end of the world. It's a shed. You could have
move the shed.
moved to, so if you're too close, if you're farther away, it's great. You don't have to do anything. But if say you were at 5.3, you would have to move the shed that 0.2 away. Does that make sense?
We would have to move the shed.
In other words, the dimensions that you show on the survey that you presented says you're 5.5 feet from the rear property. I don't know what it's. The property next to your neighbor, and you're 8 feet from Blossom Terrace. If the surveyor shows that it isn't 5.5 feet and it's only 5.25 feet, 3 inches, 3 inches shy, you would have to move the shed to be 5.5 if that's what we're granting.
Okay.
Do you understand?
So what you're saying is then it's best to do the survey prior to.
I think you'd be wise to do that survey to make sure where you are.
Okay.
Or move it if you have to, but if you don't, so it's your choice.
Excuse me, the picture that you have here, is that a picture of the old shed or the new shed?
There's actually a drawing of a new shed, and I believe that there's also a picture of the old shed as well.
There's a photo,
Right, an old photo.
because I did see the shed. The new shed is quite a bit bigger than the old shed. That,
Well, the picture, it might be a little bit deceiving, but it's pretty much, it was the same footprint that,
right, but it's taller,
Bigger, a little taller.
it's taller. It's slightly taller than the old one.
but it's the same exact footprint. It's not,
It's on the same footprint. It's in the same exact
It's
location,
on the
so.
same foundation.
but I mean, the size of the
Yeah.
shed. The new shed is the same size as the old one. It's just taller.
And a little different design.
It's
Right.
just a different design, so it's a little bit deceiving how,
If you're coming back, could we see a picture of it also?
Of which one, the new shed?
Yes, because it's
Yeah,
all
sure.
with.
it should be in the package.
The drawing of it, not a photo.
Oh, it's not a photo, but it's,
Right. The same basic photo, we have a photo of the old shed. If we have a photo of the new shed, we can see the difference between the old and the new, because that's really what we're deciding, isn't it?
Oh, nothing has been approved at any point. There hasn't
No, I
been a
understand
survey
that.
from 79,
Oh, you mean even the old shed wasn't approved?
right.
Right, but the new shed is larger, because I did see the shed. I went and looked at it, and it seemed quite a bit larger to me than this one. I don't know if it's just the height, but I think if we're gonna we're gonna look at it and make a decision, we should have a point of comparison between the old one and the new one.
Okay.
So if you could
How do
just-
you do that?
We
by
have
just taking another picture from the same vantage point of the new shed.
That's a little, it's depending on what,
can I ask a question here, Richie? This is a shed that is less than 15 feet high. So it should only require being 5 feet from the rear property line, yet we have this reading as it's currently 5.5 where 25 is required under 2240-40B. Why are we treating this as something other than
You
a
might
shed?
be correct. It's just, it might only need the Blossom Terrace side. I do apologize if I missed that. That was the rear.
Right, so I think we're dealing with an as of right if it's actually 5.5 feet.
Or
I
the
don't
side.
believe it to be.
But you have the Blossom.
And Blossom, we have a two front yard issue here. So it really is a side yard normally, but it's because it fronts on two streets, we have a two front yard issue. I would just ask if ever on this house, has there been a declaration of a rear yard for any other purposes on any other variance? So we know if the Blossom Terrace side is actually still a front yard?
Well, it's both Blossom. So the front of the house, from what I remember, the front of the house is the front of the house.
Richard, Jonathan, it isn't that it's in front of the house, it's on a street. And any yard that's on the street is considered a front yard.
Yeah, I know. I think what Jonathan is saying is that, but if it wasn't on the street, they would have actually just been able to put this in as right. Right, Jonathan? I think that's what you're trying to.
Yeah, I'm looking for clarification because, we treat many times an issue where we have two front yards where there's clearly a front yard. This is not the front yard. This is clearly the rear of the house. Give me a name to call it. It's Blossom Terrace and it's Blossom Terrace. The road that comes off of Palmer Avenue is where it fronts this house.
Correct.
The side yard.
You mean where the front door is?
The front, correct, where the front door is. So all I'm asking is, we know that there are situations where if at some point when a applicant had come in for a variance, probably predates these owners, and they declared a front yard, then we know that we will treat this as the rear yard, and we will treat it as a side yard. If that's not the case, then yes, we have two front yards, and we have to deal with this for the front yard issue, I believe, only because the rear yard is as of right if it is 5.5 feet.
It's also a shed that goes 5 feet to the property line, has to be within the rear 1/3 of the property.
Yes, that was the problem. It's not in the rear 1/3 of the.
1/3 of the property to get the benefit of that.
Thank you, Arthur.
I'm sorry?
A shed, a accessory structure to have the benefit of being 5 feet off a property line, specifically the rear or side property line, has to be in the rear 1/3 of the property.
Isn't this?
No, technically it's not. Technically it's in a front yard.
And it's in the front yard.
I got you. The
Well,
side of the shed's in the front, right. I mean, they're struggling here because they have the unfortunate situation of fronting on two streets.
That's correct, but it's in the front yard in any event.
Yet we're asking for a variance for the 25-foot requirement. So
it's not in the rear 1/3 of the property.
Because that's the rear lot line.
if it had been on the opposite corner, they would have been
Rear,
okay.
in the rear?
Yeah, and looking at the front door of the house, if it had been in the rear on the left-hand side of the house,
Then it wouldn't need a variance.
it wouldn't need the variance.
But it would have to be established that those are the dimensions that it's from the property line.
I get it. I wanted to be clear about the 5 feet issue.
Right.
Okay.
Really gotta put
You
notes
guys,
on.
you understand that? The applicant?
We do.
You
I mean,
do?
it's a little bit, we do. I mean, it's a little difficult that we have two front sides, even though it's the side of the house, but That's the
You
biggest-
get the benefit of being 5 feet offset. You can go as close as 5 feet to a property line if it's in the rear 1/3 of your property.
so in our case, I guess it would be halfway, I guess.
But your rear in the sense that even though it's rear, it's in a front yard. So it'd have to be 1/3 over towards your neighbor on the left and 1/3 from, in any event, just get it, sorry.
No, no problem. Thank you.
Do you want to take public comment?
Does anyone like to comment on this application? I just hard to see if they're in the public. You know?
I know somebody sent an email on it. I think that was distributed to everybody.
Yes,
Francine, did you,
Letters.
we have two.
was the public hearing opened?
It's still open, yes.
Okay,
No, it was never open.
yeah, we need to
Yes, I
actually
did.
open it.
I opened it right in the beginning.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, Arthur and Irene, yes.
Okay,
I just want to note something for the record. I don't know, is this the time?
for this application?
Yeah.
Okay.
It just says they're replacing an old shed with a new 10 by 10 shed, but the specifications that we have here say that it's a 12 by 10 shed.
That's correct.
Okay. But it's not, so the new shed is not 10 by 10. Maybe the old shed was 10 by 10. The new shed is 12 by 10.
Yep.
Right.
So it is large.
It's larger.
It's not just taller, it's also larger.
It could have been a typo or,
Yeah, I don't, we,
it's the same footprint, whatever that footprint is. I mean, that's the exact same footprint that,
It was on the same, was it a concrete slab that it was sitting on?
it wasn't a concrete slab. It was rails that were set up on, that was built out,
Okay, so you're saying that the old shed would have also been 10 by 12.
whichever, yeah. I mean, it's identical. It was like same size. We measured it and that's what we ordered for it.
Okay.
So what would you like to do?
I guess
Choice is, we can make a motion on this case. And if it's too close to the property line, you'll have to read notice and come back with a new application. Is that correct? Richard?
If they're seeking more of a variance,
If they were seeking more of a variance, yes.
Right.
Yeah,
and
if they're either at what they're stating or less. I mean, less of a
Now,
variance.
what happens if the survey is, we adjourn this and the survey comes back and it's closer than this variance says? Does that be renoticed?
well, actually, I take that back. We don't put the dimensions in the notices that get mailed out. So I don't think it would have to be renoticed because it would be the same variance being sought at different dimensions.
Even though it's closer?
Right.
Okay, so what does that mean?
So it just means it's their decision to, if they get an approved variance tonight and the real survey, and the survey comes back, they would have to move the shed if the survey, is.
Or else they'd have to get another.
And then on the other hand, if they got the we don't address the application tonight. They adjourn, they get a survey, and the survey shows that it's closer. What do they have to do at that point? 4 inches closer. I mean, what do they have to do?
I just have to amend, Arthur, once they give me the survey, if it's closer, I'm gonna have to amend my notice of disapproval.
Yes.
And that's really should be it, I believe, right, Lisa? Because like
Yeah.
I said, the public notice does not give a dimension.
Right.
My advice, adjourn the meeting and get a survey.
Okay, so we are getting
Well,
a
it's
comment,
built already. I mean, you're still using it. I mean,
we are getting a comment from a attendee saying that the shed is larger than the previous shed. So I think we might have, well, I don't know if we established that we.
I
would you
cannot,
like
your voice is sort of
All
coming
right.
together.
We're gonna have to change to a different audio. So we did get a comment.
That's better.
If you look at your comment section, just from D, saying this shed is larger than the previous shed.
Where is the?
I don't know that that's relevant. I think we're addressing the
At
shed
this
anyway
point.
in its current position and having it right. I
Right.
think that's all that matters. And I would just tell the applicant, it doesn't make sense for you to ask us for a variance to end up just finding out that you have to move the shed anyway. You have a choice if you go and get the survey done, which is you may want to come back and ask for a variance that's greater, meaning that it's closer to the property line, which we would consider, or you may want to move the shed. You have all those options. It would seem to me you might want to adjourn to do that.
I guess I would also like to see a plan or have some more concrete idea of how it would be screened from the neighbor, what kind of, would you plant evergreens? What would be planted to to create a screening.
If the board is gonna ask for a screening plan, I mean, as a building inspector, I would like that too, the amount of plantings, the type and the size. So if you're
Yes.
putting in 4-foot ones, you know, depending on whatever size,
Right.
I request that you guys make that part of your,
Actually, that is kind of where I was going with my questions, because the picture, the shed looks a lot smaller than it did when I went and I looked at it.
Mm.
So my question would be whether there's things that could be done that would shield it so that it would not be so visible. But Jonathan, are you
Only talk-
not the problem with the variance, that the size of it is not relevant for this purpose? It's only how far it is from the edge of the property? I mean, is this something we can legitimately look at or ask for?
I see no reason not to ask the question for everyone's consideration on the board.
I lost you.
Yeah, Jonathan?
You're on mute.
Jonathan, your voice went away.
Am I muted?
Now you're okay.
Okay,
Unfortunately, I had a call coming in, sorry. What I was saying was, in this situation, we've got a very typical, let's assume this wasn't 2 front yards. We wouldn't be talking about any of this having to do with the rear yard at the 5 feet. I am taking that into account in my mind. We're looking at screening potentially for the rear that we
That's not
typically.
true, Jonathan, because if it was closer than 5 feet, they can't do it. It was in the rear yard. It's the same problem here.
I'm addressing it. I'm addressing it, Arthur, as the applicant put this in. This is separate apart from what I had suggested earlier, that I think the applicant should go out and do a survey, have it properly identified, figure out where they really want this, and come back to us asking for the variance that they really want. Because I believe,
agree.
I looked at it, that it is significantly closer than 5 feet. And I am going to guess that when the building inspector goes out, he's going to say, you can't have this shed there. And so that's one issue. The issue that I think that Robin is addressing is about the screening. I think it would be neighborly to have screening in the back because it clearly extends above the fence, regardless of what the previous height was. Even if the other one was even higher, let's say it was 20 feet high. I don't care. Right now, it is what it is. But I'm looking at it primarily as a rear yard. And if I were really looking to create screening, I would try to create the screening from the front yard. But that's really not as necessary because it really fronts a road. So I think what we have is a consideration of neighborliness, of hiding that shed from the rear that clearly extends, I saw at least 2.5 feet above what is a substantial fence that's there. And I think the board would all take into consideration that kind of action in looking to approve that variance.
We don't have an issue with that. I mean, that's something we would do regardless.
Okay.
Okay.
So again, would you like to adjourn?
For us?
Survey.
Yeah, I mean, I think the best thing at this point is just to get a survey and then just come back with all the facts and then it'll be up to you folks to decide.
Talking.
And then even though the applicant wishes to adjourn, Rich, do you want to announce your email address if there's anyone watching that wants to submit an email?
if anybody's watching, they can email rtolcari@townofmamaroneckny.org. Any questions or comments?
No spaces.
No spaces.
And the public hearing will remain open. So if you don't email tonight, you can send in your comments between now and the September meeting, and they will be entered into the record and considered by the board.
So do I have to make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
No, you don't have to. We'll leave the public hearing open. You don't require, adjourning the meeting to the next month does not require a motion.
Okay. That's it. Have a nice rest of the summer.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
We just moved over, Robin.
Sorry, sorry I was
happened?
late, everyone. I just could not for the life of me find the link.
Me too, but I started at 6 o'clock.
Oh. Yeah, I guess that was the problem. I started few minutes before the meeting, but thank you.
I had
Lisa.
to go back to Monday to find the
Lisa
link.
saved me. Yeah, maybe, is it too much to ask for us to just get the link again on the day of the meeting?
I second that.
Yes,
I
but
don't-
it gets sent out by the LMCTV. So if I send you it, you're just gonna get my name.
Repeat
You
that?
know, when you get that invite, you can add it right to your calendar and it puts the
Yeah.
link right in your calendar.
Don't get too technical.
We don't send out that link. Link is sent out by LMCTV.
Oh,
So,
well,
if I forward you mine, that's why Robert.
You
Lee
can
comes
yeah,
up
send
that
with-
would be
notifications
excellent.
now,
Thank
aren't
you.
we?
That would be great. I just couldn't find it in my thousands of emails, and I put in,
So
I
you-
kept putting in Francine's name. That's why it wasn't coming
All
up.
right, we have two other people, so three other cases. When we move on, we can.
But can I
discuss
just, I just wanted to ask a question, Arthur, before I put the file away. On 3185 on 11 West, which, did the applicant adjourn that or we were dealing with this as a sign issue?
Sign issue.
And where should that sign, I mean, this is the most bizarre road I've seen in the
Well,
town.
I would have left that up to you guys if they had the second sign up. So
No,
we should
I
have-
understand this. I understand the second sign on the
Murray sign.
Murray side.
We
but-
can discuss that at a later time about where should it be? They have an easement going all the way out to West Drive, so, it's possible they could have put it there.
To me, it would have seemed like this belonged on West Drive. I mean, the point of this is to advertise to the neighbors who are driving by that if they have not seen something else, that's the point, because it is not what I would consider to be conspicuous.
Exactly. It was
Okay.
too far back.
Sorry, I just wanted to put that file away.
So our next one is 875, 871 Fenimore.
871 Fenimore.
Whoever's here for 871.
Application number 4, case number 3187, Guillermo and Jennifer Deer Bilbo, requesting a variance for the installation of a deer fence on the premises located at 871 Fenimore Road and known on the tax assessment map as block 312, lot 45.
I just want to note that I know the applicants, but that will not affect my decision.
And I would like to open the public hearing.
Oh, should I say that again?
No, I don't know.
Okay.
Okay.
Anybody
Yes,
second?
Lisa. How you guys are on?
Second?
We're here.
All right.
Second.
Hello,
No, I
everybody.
need a second.
Second,
Thank you.
Even more.
Okay.
All right.
What are you intending to do?
Keep the deer out of a portion of our yard.
Good luck.
So far, we've been successful. Anyway, I thank you all for listening to our request here. And I want to thank also those of you who came by today and yesterday and went for a walk in the woods with me. So I appreciate your time and all the work that you guys do. Basically, what we are asking for is a variance to put up a 7-foot wire mesh fence along. It's not really the perimeter of our property. It's in from the perimeter. And I think the easiest way to look at it is if we go to the survey. To the survey one that shows what we are, the changes that have been put in. And so if you are all on that page and you're looking, you see Fenimore Road on the left. What I tried to do here, and I apologize for my my scribbles here, but that's all I could pull together here. Anyway, it's the dash line is the fence that has been put up. And what it does is it incorporates as well, where you see the little X's, rock outcroppings that exist on the property that are kind of natural barriers that we've built into the perimeter here. And so what we're asking for is to get a variance to be able to leave this fence up as it is. The property is just over 2 acres. And what we have been tried to do, and we can go through the statement of facts. I mean, statement in support, I don't know if you all have read it, but I'm happy to walk through that if you'd like. But what we've tried to do is really balance our desire to keep the deer out of that shaded portion of the property that you see there, with at the same time letting the deer have plenty of room to go traipsing through the rest of our property. In between, when they cross the street, they generally come either from the right side of this paper or from the left side of this paper, as they're going from Wingfoot through Westchester Conservancy property that abuts the kind of the bottom right-hand corner of our property here. And then they walk through, and then they cross Fenimore and go on their merry way to play golf at Bonnie Briar or whatever they do over there. And so what we've tried to do is to allow them to continue on that merry way, but keep this back area of the property as deer-free as we can. So far, it has worked. I had tried last year. Last year, it got progressively worse, and I tried last year to do something else with just some, brush and stuff along the back, but it didn't work at all, as you can imagine. So ended up resorting to putting up this fence. And so that's the basic outline of the project and the request. If you want, I can walk you through the statement in support. We've been here 13 years. I mean, those of you who came, I don't know if you probably noticed that we're into kind of very natural and ecologically sound planting and environmental balance and preservation. So we don't do this lightly. And so even though we've always had deer traffic, it has gotten progressively worse. And so we thought that what we should try to do is the deer fence. We understand that, a lot of people say you need a 9-foot fence. My sense, and we'll see, but so far this seems to have worked, just having 7 feet. And we wanted to make sure that we kept enough access to the property so the deer were not, kind of stuck against the fence as they cross the road. The bottom of the property of the fence, which we so far just have a temporary kind of 6-foot mesh there, and where we are going to put more of a formal ornamental fence, is still about, it's 60, 70, 80 feet away from Fenimore. So it's not even visible from the road. And so, we've tried as best we can to, number one, not do anything that is an eyesore to anybody or does anything to change the character of the neighborhood. It's, as I said, it's well within the property line, and even the neighbors next door who called us on it because they could see the fence, and so we decided we moved it back somewhere between on a kind of angle, but we moved it back 15, 20 feet in places, and in other places like 5 feet. The fence on their side, as you can see, is well away from their property in any case. The other things, the other considerations that the code asks for is whether there's a reasonable alternative. We certainly haven't found one. As I said, we attempted to kind of create a barrier in the back to keep them from the usual path, but that didn't work. Whether the variance is substantial, it's actually quite unobtrusive visually. And so I think from that perspective, it certainly much less obtrusive than putting up, what others put around, which are 5-foot kind of stockade fences or something like that. This is something basically you just see right through it. It does have black posts. I won't deny that
What's the
are.
height of the black posts?
The black posts are currently about 8.5 feet. They were, what my idea and what I agreed with the guy who put up is once we set the variance and get the variance, I'll have him cap them off at 7 feet. They put them up that high with the idea that if, on top, you can put extra wires along the top. I'm not asking for a variance for that, and I don't think we need that, in all honesty. I think
And if you find a deer on your property with this fence up and you cut your posts down to the height of the fence, would you rethink that?
Well, and number one, as the guy said, we can always put an addition on top and just extend the pole again. So he'd take off the little crown thing and just put a thing on top, if that were the case. I don't want to go there. I don't want to be there. And so I hope you don't see me again asking for that. But it is fixable by doing that. The other consideration is whether it has an adverse impact on environmental, physical conditions. We don't think it does. We've left a lot of space for the deer, and they have been walking along Fenimore Road on our property and up our driveway happily, eating the usual things they eat as they go along there. And we're happy to keep planting those usual things and have them continue eating them so they stay on that side of the house, as long as they don't feed on the backside. And then lastly, the idea of self-created difficulty. I mean, I guess the only self-created difficulty we have here is that we planted things that are attractive for the deer to eat. But we don't really see it as anything. We've actually kind of worked very hard and pride ourselves in having an environment here that's very good for the environment in Mamaroneck in terms of wildlife and all that good stuff. So, I think from that perspective, we are actually very good stewards of the property here.
And the mesh is what color? Black?
It's black, yeah. Yeah, I included some pictures. I'm sorry, they were pretty.
No, I have the two in front of me.
Poor, but anyway, so I don't know if you have any questions, anything else. I don't have anything else to add.
Your drawing that you submitted, the site plan. I think, hold it. This is correct. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I thought it was going across your patio, but I'm wrong.
I have a technical question on the notice of disapproval. It says the deer fence as proposed will be 6 feet where 5 feet is permitted. Should that have been 7 feet?
Yes. It kind of, in all honesty, it varies in height. And Irene, I think, came by today and said, that doesn't look, because of the contour of the property, and they've tried to keep it horizontal on top. In some places it's 6, some it's 6.5, some it's 7.
Well,
That has to be
make
noted,
sure
unfortunately.
it indicates correctly what we, if we gave you the variance, we wouldn't want you to have to come back to get a 7 foot if the.
Correct. So we should
letter
get
said
variance
6
for 7 feet.
Aren't the rolls 7 feet high and they just roll it out against the posts? So if the topography goes up and down a little bit, the mesh goes up and down and continues across. I'm trying to figure out.
There are some gaps at the bottom. So, because of the terrain, the way they laid it out, because the posts are.
And they don't crawl under it? They don't dig under it?
No.
Well, we have.
I had that experience.
Yeah, I don't know well, I guess you saw what he ordered, but it's in there, the spec that he gave us, but.
There's no question that it's clearly higher than 6 feet.
Yes, there's no question.
And that the point is that you don't want to be asking for a variance for 6 feet, because if that's granted, the building inspector will not end up passing this because he will say it's higher than the variance we gave. So it is important that you identify the height that you want this at. I've served several years on this board, and this is the first time I've come across a deer fence. I actually went to look to see if we address something called a deer fence. We don't. We really only address a fence in the town of Mamaroneck, and we address the heights of those.
While you were here, we had a case on Hommocks Road,
It's a different situation.
and it was unfortunately, from my point of view, not a right decision. But anyway.
Well, my question is this treading into territory that is not really under the purview of the zoning board? And the questions that come to mind are, I don't see in here, we are addressing something that has to do with the environment. And what we're addressing with the environment, I don't see answered in this application by an expert in such a way that says, well, will these deer be directed in some way towards other properties that could affect other people? Would the deer somehow, by having these fences, not be able to follow their normal routes, and it could address feeding? And literally, I'm making this up, but I'm saying
No, you're
because,
not making it about the fact, though.
but the applicant, no, I'm just saying, from my point, I see nothing in this application that talks to, and I'm not an expert on deer, so I can't talk to and answer whether or not there is an environmental impact here. And I would have preferred to have seen something that said, this fence is being erected in such a way that it will not impede the environment for the deer. It will not affect other animals because other animals can navigate under it. It doesn't create a problem, of something that's unforeseen to me that a environmentalist specialist would be able to state here. So
They would be able to put a peak, John.
and I don't know, and I'm not saying that that's necessary, but I'm having a problem checking off the box about environmental impact based
So
on the application.
They would be able to put a solid fence if it were 5 feet tall around that property. So you're
Correct,
you would want to know that the difference in the environmental by making it 5 versus 7.
Correct,
That
because everything I've read so far says that a deer fence, if you want to erect a deer fence, and the only authority I found is University of Vermont, that says it should be a minimum of 7 feet high. The suggestion in most of the literature says 6 to 10 feet for a deer fence. A 5-foot fence, I would imply there is navigable. In other words, a deer could jump a 5-foot fence, so it wouldn't be impeding the environment. It wouldn't create an environmental impact on the deer. They don't care about a 5-foot fence. So here we're being asked to grant a variance for a fence for a purpose that is going to potentially, I'm not even saying I don't even know. I don't know if it will affect the environment. So I'm having a hard time with how I'm going to evaluate checking off that box.
Yeah, I think if you look at the layout of the fence, and the fence of the fence in this instance, is that it is not the whole piece of property. It's a portion of the piece of property. It allows the deer to go through the property to get to other greener pastures they can go to. And I know as a fact that we have some home out in the east end of Long Island. And those deer fences on the property are restricted to a certain proportion of the property. And and we have much more deer out there than we have even on Fenimore Road. And they are surviving, they are multiplying, and you see more of them. Because they have the roots through the properties to get to other properties.
I guess that's what I'd like to see, Arthur. If I had seen a statement in here from an expert that said enough area has been allocated so that it does not impede the normal migration, navigation, and so forth of deer, foxes, coyotes, wild turkeys. I mean, we have all of this here. Therefore, it would not have an environmental impact. That would allow me to check off that box.
Well,
Can I ask a question?
if
Could I
could-
just add something?
Can I ask a,
here?
Sure,
Is it okay if I add something here?
sure, why not? You're the applicant.
So I am not an expert in the way that is being remarked upon, but I have certainly a background in environmentalism and environmental education. I was the director of education at Sheldrake Environmental Center, and so I have studied a lot of this myself. So, you know, from that kind of non-professional amateur standpoint, plus the experience of being on this property for 13 years, we can tell you with great certainty that the traffic of the deer has not lessened on this property as a result of the deer fence. It has just restricted it to one of the two pathways that it used to have through the property. So in other words, our house is sideways on the lot. So we've basically fenced the back of our house. And then there's a huge area all along Fenimore and in the front of our house and up the driveway. And then on the other side where the deer do go every day. And the evidence is there. So I don't think it is a restriction on the deer. You know, there have been no accidents on Fenimore Road with deer since we put this fence up. So just want to point that out.
And when was the fence put up?
When was it put up, or when?
It was put up as second half of around April, the second half of April. I don't know exactly the date.
This year?
Yes, just now, yeah.
can I ask a question generally?
Sure.
As a newbie, never have, you know, this is about my third meeting. But if they hadn't called this a deer fence, if they had just asked for a variance to put up a fence 6 feet or 7 feet, would we
Same
actually
problem.
would we have the exact same discussion?
Yes.
Okay.
Only if we realized that they had a deer issue on the property, though.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, the fences impact wildlife, you know, every time they're put up in some way.
That's true.
You know, this is the first time I've heard this kind of discussion, so I was just.
Our balance, just to be transparent, as I said, our balance was to try to reasonably restrict what we fenced in, versus, you know, putting up a much broader fence all around the property, which I guess is upright. We could put up a 5-foot stockade fence all around the perimeter of the property. And which I think to any environmental whatever would say is a lot more disruptive than what we are proposing. Even if you have, you know, deer that jump over, the foxes and everybody else aren't going to be jumping over. So, you know, that was the balance we were trying to create. And I think it's been done here, given that we're only limiting, you know, we're only trying to keep them out of a portion of the backyard of the whole property.
I don't think, and I'm disagreeing with anything you said, nor am I necessarily, meaning to challenge you on that. We have an obligation as a board to check off each of these boxes. And one of the things that you saw was evaluating that environmental impact. And I'm only trying to be sensitive to what's our responsibility as well, and having not come across this issue before.
One thought I had was relative, think about it, a deer's greatest natural enemy is the automobile. And to their credit, the homeowners have positioned this fence significantly away from Fenimore, as opposed to trying to put a 7-foot fence on Fenimore, which could cause more accidents with deer. So at least they've tried to respect the deer paths. Frankly, from where I grew up, deer use the same paths for decades. So by at least allowing them to get across Fenimore without something blocking them, or they can get well across Fenimore before they face or near the fence, to me is would address one of my environmental concerns if the fence were along the road. It would be a big problem.
And there has not been an increase in accidents involving deer during this time? Do we know?
Not along our property. I mean, to be honest, we have only had, in the 13 years that we've been here, we've only had one deer fatality, and that was in the area that is not fenced now. That was much closer to the road.
And the two that I've been involved with deer hits were both in areas off of Old White Plains Road, which have actually no homes there, that, you know, abutting Saxon Woods Park, who are on the Leatherstocking Trail, because that's the major route that they come across. They actually make their way across from Saxon Woods, across Wingfoot, straight across to Fenimore, and then across Bronny Briar and back into Leatherstocking and go all the way down into New Rochelle through that route. So, you know, I would agree. The way this was done is completely unobtrusive. Nobody would ever know that there's a fence there. And I have no problem with all of the other issues on its impact, other than this one that's unanswered to me on environment, but I'm just one opinion.
True. Any other questions from the board on this?
Have we had any letters or comments from people in the community? I see
We
there.
I do have an email. I do have an email
Yes.
from a resident saying that just almost basically the same thing that Jonathan's been asking, is knowing what the impact of the might have on the deer by the creation of a fence. Will it be more likely to run into the streets, causing a road hazard? Will they congregate on adjacent properties? She has also sent a webinar chat, one of the chats, just saying that, you know, she has seen that 871 has allowed deer paths. A neighbor next to them has closed their whole property with a deer fence. But, you know, you'll see that one next month.
Because a lot of the fence is 7 feet. Do they have to come back again? I mean, since they're asking, would be technically asking for more than is in the notice.
Or can they amend it?
Okay, amend it now.
Yes, because the notices that go out to neighbors and the sign don't have any dimensions on them.
All right, only our notices do.
And I apologize because I'm just looking through their file. They had 6 to 7 feet on there, and I think because I wrote up 2 right next to each other at the same time, I wrote it up as both the same. So I do apologize for that. I did not catch that.
You know, looking at as the applicant stated, the location of the fence allows the deer plenty of space to go past, through, and go across Fenimore and go on its merry way to New Rochelle. I mean, it really is done properly, and it looks like from the area of the site that it's probably less than 50%. Your house takes up a proportion of that, of the at least in 2-dimension.
Yeah.
Coverage on your property. So I think it's inadequate. I think the fence as laid out is adequate to solve the problem that this applicant has.
Arthur, I walked the property today as well with the applicant, and visually speaking, it does seem like there's a tremendous amount of space for the deer to get by. In addition, the property backs up to a vacant piece of land that is owned by a conservancy. Is that correct?
Westchester Conservancy.
It's owned by Westchester Land Trust. It's a single lot.
It backs up to,
you know? Do you know how big?
1 acre.
1 acre.
Yep.
Yep. Which just allows for a larger path of area for the deer.
Area. And they also have the golf courses, which are on
from golf course to golf course.
North Saxonwood Park, all the way down.
The most likely impact is actually going to be on 8 Evergreen, because everything is directed now up their driveway through the back of 8 Evergreen.
Well, I haven't put a camera out there, but I can tell you that and Stephen, when you were here, mean, what they do is the deer go up our driveway and then they make a right behind the fence and they go along the fence in the back there where there's still a lot of shrubbery, and then they go into that property. So they tend to avoid going into their yard because that means they end up having to cross the street on the other side, and they'd rather just go the other way and stay in the conservancy, the land trust space, and that gets them right into Wingfoot, and they're on their merry way.
They are dumb animals, but they're smart about certain things.
Right.
And they're
At this
creatures,
point,
they're creatures of habit, so.
I think I want to curtail the discussion about from the board and see if there's any comments from the public. How do I do that, Lisa? I just say, is there any comments from the public?
Unmute yourself.
Thanks. And Rich, can you just say your email one more time?
If anybody has comments, they can email me at rpolcari@townofmamaroneckny.org. No spaces.
So how long do we wait for this?
I didn't receive any emails on either of the email chains yet. We have, like, I think I did say we did receive one comment in the Zoom chat, which was just about that 871 has allowed deer paths. The next door neighbor has not, 875, which is next to them. And that's the same person that actually sent the email asking about the impact on the deer and if they
Right.
cause.
Right. I thought we addressed this in this whole discussion.
I think you did. I'm just.
I really do, because it's a lot of vacant areas that are up there that, and this applicant in putting it there does not restrict, I don't think it restricts their movement at all.
The resident with the question about the where deer go, things like that, is actually happy with everybody's explanation.
Okay. Any other question from the board? So the real question is, do you want to amend your application to say 7 feet?
Because we
Well,
said,
so Arthur, their application was correct. I have to amend my denial notice.
Oh, so it's 6 to 7.
And
Yes.
I can reflect that by adding a recital to clarify that. So it can still, whatever the board wants to do can happen in this meeting.
It's not even really an amendment. It's really a typo. It's a ministerial change. Right? Because the application was correct to begin with.
Correct.
Right?
So anybody that viewed the application either online or came into the office, made an appointment to come to the office, would have been able to read through that and see that too.
Lisa, I have a question for you. What's the right word? The bindingness of a variance. What I'm getting at is, if in the future, some environmentalist, the land trust, I don't know, comes up and says they believe this fence creates an environmental impact that's out there, and we have granted a variance, does that in any way have any weight on the case that someone else might want to bring in the future? Would you know?
I mean, the variance runs with the land. So I guess I don't know if the land trust succeeds in getting legislation passed that says all 7-foot fences have to be reduced to 6 feet, then I guess that could have an issue, but I can't see anything else that, and it's, as you know, it's hard to have legislation that goes back retroactively. It's typically for prospectively on fences.
Except for air conditioning.
I think what I'm thinking a little more was, it's a year down the road and the rear neighbors actually say, this has created a significant problem for us. We never saw deer through our yard. We have coyote now that are in the back that don't seem to be able to navigate. And we would like to challenge to have this fence removed. I'm asking whether or not, I'm leaning towards granting this application, but still concerned about the environmental issue.
Jonathan, I don't think the only.
Almost thinking about the idea of conditioning that this board has said, we are granting this, but we are not precluding any future challenge from it from an environmental standpoint. It doesn't sound like that's somehow in our purview, nor do I necessarily think, I'm trying to understand whether or not that challenge could still happen if in the future they see that this has some meaningful impact.
I think the only way this is going to have a potential meaningful thing is everybody put up a 6-7 foot fence. This is one isolated case. We're looking at this one piece of property. The applicant is taking the care to allow deer to have free movement through the property. Coyotes, I do not believe, can jump 7 feet or 6 feet. They're gonna have to dig under the fence, and that can be almost any fence other than a wall.
Arthur, I appreciate what you're saying. I'm not addressing that. Like I said, I am leaning towards approval of this, affirmatively approving this application. I just don't feel comfortable in dismissing that some future situation can occur. This is new. This is new to me, and I think to anyone that's sitting on this board, we have pretty clear situations in most of these cases. We look at environmental. They're putting in dry wells. We have to worry about runoff. We worry about light and air and those kinds of things.
And we address it when the time occurs.
Yeah, Jonathan, to Carol's point, I think if you were to do that in this case, then every single time we approve a 7-foot fence in the town of Mamaroneck, we would have to put that proviso in because, de facto, whether they say they're doing it for deer or not, it would keep deer out of their backyard. So we would have to require it equally to all the residents of the town. So
And I don't.
are we prepared to do that even if we can?
But I don't have a problem with that when we have a situation. We have much higher density areas that don't have this issue. We have more rural areas that actually have this issue, which I think we're totally not just within our right, but have an obligation to look at an environmental impact. I know when I look at my backyard, I back up to Saxon Woods Park. When we were erecting our wall that was being put in the back, we created a way that the animals can continue to navigate. The foxes actually use my backyard as a path to come out of the woods to get to the street. I have turkeys that run through here.
How is that any different than this fence, which is allowing passage through the property with a fence?
I'm addressing only what Robin said. I'm just staying on point. I say, I don't believe we address it in every case of a 7-foot fence. We're addressing this specifically for a reason that was to mitigate a nuisance, which happens to be deer that cause damage. If an applicant comes in and they're dealing with deer, I would be just as much asking the question about, is there going to be an impact here? Are we corralling them into a place that too many will cross a road?
We do have
Look, I'm only one board member, and I'm just expressing that I have this concern, and I just felt that it wasn't fully answered. I do agree with Arthur that in this case, I do see, and I walked the property, I looked at both sides, I see how the deer will travel in both directions or go around the rock outcroppings on one side of the house. They'll go up the driveway on the other side. 875 also has a deer fence up. At some point in time, this is going to become a corralling through a very narrow area. Do we say to the next applicant, sorry, the other 2 and 3 people who got there first put up the deer fence, but now we have to allow your yard to be the egress for them? So I'm just trying to get my brain around it.
Excuse me, I do have somebody in the attendee that would like to talk. Can I let him in?
Sure.
Thank you. Brian? Oops, sorry, Brian?
He's muted.
Yeah, no, why is he muted? You keep on muting him. Keeps remuted.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can.
Very good. This is Brian Margolis. We live at 4 Fenbrook Drive, which is 2 properties down Fenimore Road from the 871 Fenimore. I have no objection to the granting of the variance in this case, but I just think it should be noted in the record, in the minutes of the meeting, that one of the criteria that was important to the board was that the deer were able to still pass through the property because the fence was not entirely at the property's perimeter.
Brian, I think we've discussed that a bit in this application so far.
And Brian, just so you know that the fence would have to stay as it is shown on the plan. They couldn't go farther out because of this variance. It has to stay on that footprint that they're showing on the plan.
Oh, that's what you're suggesting as a limitation, Brian? That the fence has to be where it is and it can't be?
No, we're suggesting that the deer be allowed to go through the property, not having a fence that's going on the property lines totally.
It's not a.
You know, there's legislation in other communities that say the deer fence can only occupy so much percentage of your property to allow for the free movement of deer and other wild animals.
Any thought that this is something the town board should consider? We don't have there.
In the future, but we have a case right now. Yes, the answer to that should be yes.
But considering if we start seeing more of these, just a thought.
Just by coincidence, we were out in East Hampton, and friends there told us that their regulation is 40% of your property.
It's 40%, right?
And we had 40% here just by chance, to tell you the truth. And I haven't measured it totally, but I think it's that.
Oh, what happened to you?
Kind of a standard that they use.
So I froze.
By the way, that's the kind of thing I was looking for, and that's very helpful to say that other municipalities have found through their experience that 40% seems to be a good acceptable ratio, and this at least is consistent with that. And I would assume there's a fair amount of science that had gone behind that and experience. That's all I've been asking for in this hearing, was something to that effect that allows me to check off that box.
Are you feel confident now?
That this was entered into the record, that we're saying this represents no more than 40%. And Arthur, you can attest through your own experience that there are restrictions along those kinds of lines. It makes me feel more comfortable with it.
I didn't do a takeoff, but it can be scanned in and measured, but it looks visually, since the house occupies most of this enclosure in reality, that you're easily, I don't think you even make 40% if you want to know the truth. I'm not including the house in that.
Unmute yourself, Richie.
Brian, would you like to say anything else, or would you like to be muted?
Any other comments from the board members? Is Brian still with us?
His name is, but.
Okay. I would like to make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
So someone like to make a motion?
I will.
Good girl, woman, friend.
Okay.
The other comment we did get is, and I forwarded it on to you all, but the people next door were fine with where it ended up from their perspective. So I wanted that noted.
Okay, I'm looking for the top page of this application over here.
Just have to modify the 6 feet though to be.
Correct. I'm sorry, I'm just looking for that first page. No, I was the one who pointed it out to begin with. And now I lost it. Here it is. Okay, this is application. Well, application number 4, case number 3177. Is a request for a variance for the installation of a deer fence on the premises located at 871 Fenimore Road, known on the tax assessment map as block 312, lot 45. They're proposing a deer fence that will be 7 feet where 5 feet is permitted, pursuant to section 240-52A for a fence in a side and rear yard in an R30 zone district. So in addressing the 5 factors that the Zoning Board of Appeals takes into account when granting a variance, whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood. No, we don't believe so. The fence is visually unobtrusive. It's made out of wire except for the vertical posts, which will be cut down to 7 feet, even though they're a little longer right now. It does not encircle the entire property, which we consider very significant. It will only cover about 40% of the property and still allow the deer free rein to cross through much of the lot. We spoke about the fact that communities, an example was mentioned of a community in the Hamptons, actually have laws that limit these deer fences to 40% of the property. So this would be consistent with that. And it is set significantly within the property line, which minimizes the visual impact, not only to the deer, but to the neighbors. Is there a reasonable alternative that does not require a variance? Experts have agreed that deer fences must be approximately 7 to 8 feet tall because the deer could easily jump over a smaller fence, such as a 5-foot fence, which is what they would be allowed to put in there without a variance. That would not be tall enough to prevent the deer from jumping over the fence. They did try to erect a natural barrier, but that did not work. And they have also tried to cultivate native species on the property that would be less attractive to the deer, but that also had only limited success. And so they believe that only a deer fence would really be successful in limiting the deer on their property. Is the variance substantial? Well, it's a 7-foot high mesh fence, but it's less visually obtrusive than a solid 5-foot fence would be, which they would be within the law to do without a variance. So it's virtually transparent and again, well within the property line, lessening the visual impact. Does the variance have an adverse impact on physical or environmental conditions? The board discussed this at length. They have fenced in a smaller area, approximately 40%, so the deer would be able to follow their path, one of the 2 paths that they were taking through the property. They will not be trapped on the road. They still have a lot of room on the Fenimore side of the road, and they will not be forced to go into neighbors' properties because they will be allowed to still travel through the property of the applicants. Whether there has been any self-created difficulty, it's always a self-created difficulty under the law, as I understand it. However, in this case, they did not, they're not responsible.
Undeterminative period, it doesn't really count.
On their property. Yeah, so it is a self-created difficulty. I move, therefore, to approve the variance in this case.
May I suggest one or ask one clarifying question to perhaps add to alternatives? Because it sounded like from the applicant that at the request of a neighbor, the fence was set back further from the property line. So if that's the case, I think that could also be included as an alternative that the applicant considered as far as the placement of the fence.
Correct. I accept that amendment to the motion. Which also both was visually in terms of what the neighbor could see was better and also gives the deer more space.
Someone like to second the amendment?
Before we take this to a vote, I just have a question. It just struck me. Richie, why is this a side yard when the fence is actually fronting Fenimore? Otherwise, we need a variance for a 4-foot fence for
Oh,
the
you know,
front yard.
but I don't think it's in the required front yard.
Saying it's more than, it's more than what distance?
Like 80 feet in from Fenimore.
Yeah.
It's not in the required front yard.
You're muted, Richie.
I know that. I'm going with what Art said. It actually is because of where it's set back.
Where it's set back.
It's past the line of the front yard.
Required front
Right,
yard.
so we're not,
Anywhere near.
so then it's considered a side yard because
No,
it's,
it's considered part within the property. It's not in the required front yard.
There's a rear yard and side yard, is there not, on this? Fence goes all the way around.
I just want the variance to be accurate, that's all. And we talked to a rear and side yard setback. Sorry, a rear and side yard fence limitation of 5 feet. But is this a rear or side yard, or is it
It's a
just?
rear and side yard. So the back side of the house, it's rear, it looks to me like it's a rear and side yard looking at the survey.
Because Fenimore, where the fence is going up, that goes directly perpendicular to Fenimore,
Okay.
right, is,
Parallel.
I'm sorry, parallel with Fenimore is actually the front yard, right?
No, 'cause it's where it's set. It's basically the cutoff line between the front yard and the side yard or rear yard, depending on where.
Okay, if you're satisfied, I'm satisfied. I just wanted to make sure we were accurate.
I also just want to clarify that we are approving this deer fence as proposed, meaning where it is right now. So,
Really where it's at, indicated on the plan, on the survey.
Yeah, it's on the plan.
In, at least in the dotted line, is that correct?
Yes.
Here, is that correct?
The fence is where it's the dotted line, right?
Right, so this ties you down to a location.
Well, it's there already. Yeah.
So wait a minute. So we're not proposed, it's legalizing a fence.
Yes.
Yes, this was legalizing.
now we just want to make sure that people who buy the house after you don't say, oh, we're allotted a 7-foot fence and now we're going to build it on the
Right.
perimeter of the property.
Well, that's a problem.
Okay,
I
is
mean, that's a problem potentially.
Right.
You know, anyone can do that.
It's not an issue because if you
All right,
take
I
it
want to
down-
move this on because
if you take it down, you need the variance.
Arthur, to the
that.
same point as the last applicant, is this a accurate survey with this dotted line, or did you just draw this in to the applicant?
I drew this into the best of my
Ability.
There's no setback requirement for
Yeah,
the fence,
that's
so
right.
it doesn't really need to be exact.
So you're not,
should
okay.
be tied to this drawing that indicates the fence.
Yes,
Yeah,
Yeah, let's just end it there.
which represents approximately 40% of the property. That's the number we talked about.
and the language of the resolution limits the variance to the, it's
Probably less than that,
to the submitted plans, to what's shown on the.
That's correct. Someone like to second it?
Second,
All those in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Would you be told?
Excuse me?
Are we calling the
To be
roll or?
told individually.
Oh,
which
yeah,
is
okay.
passed.
Well, obviously, Robin, yes.
Francine?
Who's Nicole?
Usually Francine polls us.
Arthur,
Yes.
Irene,
Yes.
Stephen,
Yes.
Robin,
Yes.
Jonathan.
Yes.
Carol?
Carol's the alternate, so she's not.
I'm at the altar, okay. That's what I was gonna ask.
All right. Enjoy your fence.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you very much, everybody.
You're all welcome to come and watch the deer walk down the driveway.
Hey, you have to realize that turkeys fly. Doesn't matter what fence.
I failed to mention that we actually saw a fox in our yard last week, outside the fence, freely walking. So
Outside the fence.
outside the fence. So the wildlife.
Nothing to get them to dig under, right?
No, although our dog has done that already, so don't worry about it.
And your groundhog ran in front of me when I was on the property also.
Oh, the groundhog is very happy. We have more than one actually, so.
So
Thank you.
aren't you lucky living in a natural environment?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, we enjoy it. Thanks very much to everybody.
Okay, have a good evening. Next,
Application number 5, case number 3188, David and Paula Krenkel requesting a variance for an air conditioning condenser unit on the premises located at 21 Hillside Road and known on the tax assessment map as block 128, lot 240.
I make a motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
I have to say that I also know David and Paula Krenkel, but that will not affect my decision.
I think I know them too.
Arthur does.
I do. Where are they?
Okay, am I on?
Yep.
Okay. Well, David and Paula Krenkel at 21 Hillside Road, we're looking to put an air conditioning unit, condenser. Hold on, it's saying here, they want to start my video. Yes, okay, there we go. Okay, can you see me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
On the right side of our house, where a 10-foot setback is required, the house right now has a 6.8-foot setback, and we want to end up with a setback of about 5.3 feet. Now, I just want to point out that there's a path that runs on the right side of the house, and you can refer to the drawing, the survey that I included. The air conditioning unit will not intrude onto that path, so it won't block egress to the backyard or from the backyard. We're planning to install a Mitsubishi split unit, which is a very state of the art, and it's got decibel sound of about 51 decibels, which is very, very, very low. We're looking to install it there because we've been told by our installer that the installation will be less complicated if we put it there. There's less pipes to be run, and there'll be less effect on the outside of the house in terms of the environment, in terms of pipes running along the house. I think that's really it.
I think you can add also that being that it's a Mitsubishi unit with a split unit, it can go almost virtually right tight to your house. On it clear, it's very small. So it's really a very quiet, small compressor, not like the normal.
Correct. It's the footprint. It's 13 inches wide.
Correct.
And I think it's 31 inches high and 37 inches the length. It's very, very quiet. We just installed another one on the other side of the house on top of a flat roof, but we did need a variance for that one. So we're just trying to put one on the other side now, so that.
And it's a very high efficiency unit also.
Very, exactly. Yeah, we did a lot of research. And are there any questions that anybody have?
The only problem that I see is on the survey that I have a copy of, it doesn't indicate it exactly, nor does it give a setback. I don't know why that is.
On the bottom, it's written out, Arthur. It's kind of hard to read. It didn't come out good enough.
It says 5.3 feet. But it's in the location, but the location is so set. It's a circle, and I can't place it on the property.
Well, let me look at the survey.
But in any event, it's not to get it surveyed, so it's the same problem.
Well, the thing that I was concerned about, I did confirm that it was a 13-inch depth on this, but I could not confirm what the clearance needs to be to the structure. So
Less than 4 inches.
Sorry?
I'm doing it right now, less than 4 inches.
Correct. That's what my installer told me.
So is that the way you backed into it? You said 17 inches from the house?
We said we needed about 18 inches from the house.
18 from the house. Okay.
Yeah, so 18 from the house. So 6.8 less 18 inches is 5.3.
Right. We're trying to just make sure you don't have a problem. And it sounds like you gave yourself a little clearance.
I'm hoping we did. Yeah.
Me and Mr. Grant, we did discuss that too.
Yes.
Any other questions from the board? This is a pretty simple one, guys.
I would make the comment that I walked the property. There is no other logical place for this that would not require a variance. So this made the most sense.
Perfect. You can make the motion. Get to that.
Okay.
Any other
Motion to
questions?
close.
on the board? Any
You want to
questions from the-
ask the public?
Close the meeting.
I'm getting to
Close
that.
first,
Excuse me?
Before we
public
close,
and then close.
Excuse me? I couldn't hear that. I'd like to make them answer any questions from the audience, from the public. I was just getting to that, guys. Come on, give me a break.
If anybody has any questions on this application, you can email rpolcari@townofmamaroneckny.org. Or if you're an attendee, you can raise your hand or chat.
What is that 16 where it says chat? That's 16 people watching this?
There's 3 people left.
There's 15.
No, if you click on that, Arthur, there's 6 people. There's a conversation in there from the last meetings.
It says 15 participations, chat 16. What does that mean? 16.
There's 16 back and forths.
Okay.
You open up the chat box. You think I'm just sitting here? I'm talking to people in the background.
No one's responding to that, so I'm going to make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor? That's it, just second, that's it. Jonathan, you'd like to make a motion?
Okay. In the case 3188, David and Paula Krenkel, located at 21 Hillside Road. They're seeking a variance for a AC compressor on the side of their house, of which there's a 10-foot setback. They're looking for 5.3 feet where the 10 is required. The Board of Appeals, in looking at this case, will balance the benefit to the applicant versus the detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the community. The board considered whether the benefit can be achieved by other means feasible to the applicant. This is an air conditioning unit. The air conditioning unit could be placed elsewhere, but any other location would also require a variance. This seems to be the most logical and unobtrusive spot. Whether it'll be an undesirable change to the neighborhood's character or to the nearby properties, this is a high efficiency, low profile, low dB unit. It will have only a negligible amount of noise that it creates and will create no other environmental impact and shouldn't have any impact on the neighbors. Whether the request is substantial, the board would find that this is not a substantial request. Houses in this area mostly have air conditioning units, have central air conditioning. Again, that this is a very small and unobtrusive unit, so the request is not substantial. Whether the request will have any adverse physical or environmental effects, stated previously, the low dB rating will not create any environmental impact. It won't affect light, air, runoff, or anything else. Whether the alleged difficulty is self-created, it is clearly self-created, as the applicant wishes to have air conditioning and be comfortable in the summertime, but that is not determinative in this matter. Respectfully submitted.
Second.
Well, again, how do we do this?
Arthur Wexler,
Yes.
Irene O'Neill,
Yes.
Stephen Marsh,
Yes.
Robin Nichinsky,
Yes.
Jonathan Sachs.
Yes.
Thank you.
Enjoy your cool space.
Thank you all. We appreciate it.
Have a good summer.
Okay, bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Next.
I think that's it.
No, we got number 6.
Officially do the minutes, right?
46 Cooper.
We did the minutes?
We have one more.
yeah, we have 46 Cooper, right?
Yes.
Yes, 46.
How would we have a meeting without Lewis and Lewis as the
Yeah, we're just gonna say.
My camera's not working.
Camera not be working. Jonathan.
My name's here, but not my picture.
Oh, he hasn't admitted you
Off
yet.
the page.
Okay,
Jonathan, you want 2 different boxes here.
start my video. Oh my God, my hair's getting long.
All right, lost the page. Application number 6, case number 3189, application of Anna and James Brennan requesting a variance for a front entry portico on the premises located at 46 Cooper Lane and known on the tax assessment map as block 217, lot 487.
Make a motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
Second.
You're on.
Hey, good evening. How's everyone?
Okay, how are you doing?
Good. You guys know the problem with peeing on an electric fence, right? You're in trouble.
Oh, no.
Sorry.
Continue.
Funny.
Greg,
Just because you were locked up in the house for so many months.
but apropos to what you said and having to do with nothing, that's actually been disproven.
Oh, really?
No, the stream is not solid enough to be able to conduct the.
Interesting. I'm going to try it next time I'm buying an electric fence. I'll be on the phone with you, Jonathan.
What do you think we do when we go to these fire calls for wires down in the street? We discuss whether or not you can pee on them to put them out.
That's funny. So I'm here to talk about 46 Cooper. I've got Jamie and Anna Brennan on.
Hi, good evening.
Jamie, you were in the dark before. The light behind you, it looked like you were like a Russian spy or something, and that we couldn't reveal your.
Anna came in and brought the light with her.
Yes.
You're still backlit a lot. You're really backlit a lot. You can barely see your face.
And I may be the client, but I'm not responsible for Greg's jokes.
So Greg is okay. You guys are just the ones who can't see.
So I'm going to try and share my screen. I've got to figure out. Let's see here. Page. Where's my wife? Here we go. Visual Sims. Where's my share screen? Oh, there it is. Hold on. There we go. So we're talking about 46 Cooper. Can you see the house here from the Zoom Google Maps?
Mm-hmm.
That's great. So we're proposing an entry portico over the front here. We're doing some kitchen renovations in the back. But as part of this renovation, we'd like to add a portico to the front. Obviously, with Amazon deliveries and everything's sitting outside. Arthur, I heard your story about raccoons eating some food on your porch the other day.
Oh, not just ate it. They had a field.
Yeah. So I'm going to switch screens here and see if it goes with my Zoom. Sometimes it doesn't. Do you guys see the site plans now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So what we're proposing is a entry portico. This is the existing site plan on the left where my cursor is moving. And this is the proposed site plan. And I've clouded everything with the cloud on the plans for the ZBA approval. So we're literally talking about a portico here that comes out to the street. We're looking to put it at 27.5 feet where 30 foot is required. So the setback line is here. I'll move my cursor here.
What drawing is this?
This is hold on, let me just get to it. A1.
Hold on, let me get to it. Okay.
Greg, you're requesting 26 and a half, because I think we asked to go to I think we ended up going to the overhang.
Yeah, we did that for Arthur's benefit because we have a 12-inch overhang. So we're asking for 26.5.
Where, how much is required?
30 feet. 30 foot.
No, the overhang you get a benefit when you're at 30 feet. Was it 2 feet? What is it?
It's it's a 1 foot overhang.
I spoke to you about this before I actually asked Greg to do that, and it was because he's already lost that benefit because he's in the setback already.
I know, but that overhang is coming from what point? I mean, the house has what's?
I'll show you. Arthur, I'll just give you a second. I'll walk you through it again. So the house currently is at about 31 feet. You see this the black line? And the garage here is 26.1. That's on the left. And the dashed line here is a 30-foot setback.
Okay.
My cursor's going.
Right.
So we're coming 2.5 feet here.
2.5 feet forward with the columns.
To the columns are, to the front of the column. Right. And then we have a 12-inch overhang is the dashed line you're seeing here.
Right. So all I'm trying to say is that overhang is not from the 30-foot point. Isn't there an allowable overhang on a house That's the
Yeah, but I've been at meetings where you've debated this for a half hour.
No. I'm saying is it's from the 26.5 from 28 feet. I mean, that's what I'm trying to say.
No, I think it's like any of the other things that we do where you end up, if you go outside the setback, you lose that benefit.
No. What I'm trying to say is if you build a house where the wall is on the setback line, the code says in the back end of the code that you're
Yes.
allowed to have 18 inches, some amount of money of
2
an
feet.
overhang.
2 feet.
Yeah, but
4 feet is okay.
that's for the projection when you're not starting out already in the setback. This
I agree,
projection starts already inside the setback.
Yes.
You're the one who argues this all the time, Arthur, so.
So I thought about it. And
You're
I
missing what,
asked
you're missing what I'm saying. The actual projection of the columns, which are creating the structure that has a roof on it.
Yes.
And now you're putting a 12-inch overhang. You're allowed to have an overhang at the setback of 2 feet. You're going how much beyond that for the overhang? From the 2-foot point.
I don't know.
Forget it. Do whatever you want. I'm just telling you about that. That's
He's
think
asking.
think about it after the meeting. Think about it after the meeting.
He's asking for the variance,
I was trying to
including the
guess what you would-
projection, which is what you keep asking for, because we started in the setback. You don't get the benefit of the 2-foot overhang because your columns are out at 27.5. You're
That's
already
correct.
in the setback.
You don't get, that doesn't go along with you. But
Right.
that fascia of the overhang starts not at the setback, it starts 2 feet from that, which you're allowed to do by the code. That's all I'm trying to say. So it's 26.5 feet where 28 feet is required for no overhang.
Yes.
Correct.
Allowed. That's all I'm trying to say.
Yes, I agree.
Okay. Move on.
Moving on. Just scrolling down, I've got a little more detail in the floor plan here. So here's a larger floor plan of the portico. We're changing the front door orientation, but that's not part of the approval tonight. We've got the new columns here and a stoop, and then we've got a step down, and then we go to the pavers that you see in the front yard. And then on elevation, it's just kind of a cute little portico to complement the.
Is that term you're using, copper saddle? Isn't that called? Isn't that a term for that, a cricket?
Which one? Here?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it could be. Yeah, that's probably more of a cricket than a saddle. But I love it.
The saddle usually is underneath the door or something.
I love it when you find something wrong in my drawings. It's perfect.
Just
Arthur, you forgot to yell at him for the other thing, which was not putting existing next to the proposed. Three pages
No,
apart.
he has it, but he has.
Well, look at here. It's right here. You see it. You see it here. It's.
I know it's 3 pages apart.
It's right next to it on the screen here. So you like.
I know, but he's moving. We don't have to go through pages. Come on, let's move on. I had to have dinner yet. I'm stopping.
All right. So there's the rear. Excuse me, the front, and here's the proposed front. And I will look up the definition of a saddle because I think a saddle can apply either one.
Okay, I'll be happy to. You can just tell us next
We
month.
can debate that at our next meeting. And obviously, we have a new front door. We're also putting in some new windows on the porch here. But again, the door and the window aren't what you're approving. The approval is for the 2.5 foot to the column and 3.5 out for the fascia that you see here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really pretty straightforward.
In the interest of expediency, does anyone have any concerns that they want to ask about? This seems straightforward to me. So
yes.
Although chatting is always lovely, maybe we can.
All right, let's move on. Any other comments from the board?
I would just make the comment that, aesthetically, this actually improves the house. That this is being asked for is less than the larger intrusion into the setback, which is the garage.
Correct.
So it's set back behind, and it really is a minimal amount of space, and it is open, not enclosed.
You should make the motion again, because that's exactly what you're going to put in it. Where we didn't get that for you.
I think first you need to go ask if there's any more comments, ask the public, and then I'll make the motion.
Any comments? Any other comments from the board? Any comments from the public?
If there's any comments from the public, they can email rpolcari@townofmamaroneckny.org. And I will tell you if I see anybody.
Give them enough time.
Sorry.
Make a motion to close the
I do not
public.
see any
hearing.
hands up or any chats.
Yes, I can't see anything in the bottom. Oh, what? Are you okay?
Looks like we're okay. We have 0 attendees, by the way.
Okay, so I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second,
Who would like to make a motion?
make the motion. I can tell you, we should do these meeting on Tuesday because they come for recycling on Wednesday, so.
Doesn't take out much in the recycling bin. Take it from me.
Mine is not stamped here. What case number was this?
Yeah, that was, mine wasn't either, by the way.
3179.
89,
case of
89.
In the case of 3179, Anna and James Brennan, located at 46 Cooper Lane. The applicant is seeking to add a portico in the front yard, which is proposed at 26.5 feet, where 30 feet is permitted. In reviewing this application, the Board of Appeals.
Sorry.
Sorry.
My,
Someone's got a background on.
background noise, okay.
Your phone just went crazy.
In reviewing this application, the Board of Appeals had balanced the benefit of the applicant with the detriment to any health, safety, and welfare to the community. In doing so, the board took the following criteria: whether the benefit can be achieved by other means feasible to the applicant. The applicant wishes to add a portico to protect from rain and other elements for visitors to the house, which cannot currently be achieved at the house. It is done so in a minimal fashion, and I don't see that there's another alternative that would not require a variance for the applicant. Whether an undesirable change in the neighborhood character to nearby properties, there will be no undesirable change. In fact, this aesthetically improves the lines of the house. It is consistent with the architecture of the balance of the neighborhood and will not have any other effects. Whether the request is substantial, the request is not substantial, as the architect has only probably dealing with into the setback, I would say no more than 12 square feet that we have. So it is not substantial. Whether the request will have any adverse environmental impacts, it will only potentially redirect some rain that's out there, but that will be dealt with as any runoff is dealt with on the property. It will not affect any air, light, or any other environmental factors. Whether the alleged difficulty is self-created, it is clearly self-created as the applicant wishes to have a portico, but it is non-determinative in this matter. Respectfully submitted.
Anyone like to second it?
I second it.
Second.
Oh.
Arthur Wexler,
Yes.
Irene O'Neill,
Yes.
Stephen Marsh,
Yes.
Robin Nichinsky,
Yes.
Jonathan Sachs.
Yes.
Thank you.
Hey, Arthur, before we leave, can you see my screen now?
Yeah,
It says a cricket or a saddle is a rich structure designed to divert water on a roof.
okay, I'm now educated.
Before we break, can I ask, tell me if I can ask this question. You can go, Greg. This is.
Okay, great. Thank you all. Have a nice evening.
We just want to say thank you. Have a good night.
Going back to can I talk, Lisa, about the case on Blossom?
Where's Lisa?
The one that, but they're not here now. It doesn't.
I got this. Okay, good.
It's fine for you to talk. We're still on the record. It's still a public meeting. You're not precluded from talking, but this is all on the record.
One of the things that I had looked at when they provided their chart for the zoning is there was no calculation of coverage. Richie, should that have been done just to verify that we didn't have a coverage issue with the increase potentially in size of this?
I could have asked for it, but it didn't look like it was necessary. I mean, well, I could do a quick takeoff.
If your judgment was that you think there's no coverage issue, I'm satisfied with that. I just didn't want to find out in the end that there was a coverage issue. I realize we're putting something on the ground.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Can we just make a simple discussion about these cases when we get in the packet? Because there are a lot of pages there that are not relevant to the zoning board.
If the board would like to get together and maybe let me know what pages you need and which ones you don't, yeah, it would be great, because I mean, it would also save the applicants from having to make 13.
Yeah, right.
copies of
You're like,
something you're just
the
gonna throw away.
checklist, we don't need a checklist. I don't think, that was the long sheet that was in the beginning. I think from my point as a member of the board, I think the photographs are important. I think the area map is important. I definitely think the first page of the notice of disapproval is important. Application to the zoning board of appeals, I don't think we need. Application for a building permit, I don't think we need. It's giving me no more information other than they paid a fee. And the rest of it is usually what's the important stuff. So the 3 or 4 pages, that is not, it's just, I keep on ripping them out and I multiply by 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. It's 30 pages of paper that it's a waste.
I personally like to see the checklist on top, but I don't also need to ever see, the actual application.
Why do you need to see the checklist, may I ask? Since that's a checklist for when the application is brought in and it's checked by the office.
Only because we went through this before of not having stuff. It
Well, that's the problem. The office should make that correct. We are not there.
Actually, Arthur, I agree with Jonathan. I think the checklist should show board members exactly what the applicant says it submitted and didn't submit. Arthur, you're correct that the office are the gatekeepers, that it's their job to follow up on that, but I think that should be part of the application package.
Fine, I have to tell you, the first page that gets thrown on in the garbage is that page. I don't even look at it. I'll be honest with you.
And I rarely ever look at anything having to, if ever looking at the building permit itself. The thing that's most important to me is to have a very, very clear zoning chart. The one that drives me insane is when it's tiny, embedded in the corner of a plan. I would make the applicants rewrite them into a larger
So you
one.
want the one that, I mean, a lot of them do have that chart in the back. Sometimes I don't have them fill out the whole thing just because some of it's unnecessary for what they're going for.
Yep.
I wouldn't have somebody do a coverage calc on a air conditioner.
It was just like in this case, not seeing a coverage. I don't know if it was missed versus it wasn't necessary.
Gotcha.
And that's why I look at it.
If he made a presentation, the applicant, that it was the same size that was there before. Zoning came through the discussions that there possibly was not the same size, but he said he put it over the same location. So it's up to the surveyor to verify, and this is an easily calculable change from 10 feet to 12 feet to 8 to 6. The differential is so small. Then
but Arthur, we didn't even know if the previous shed was legal.
We don't think.
I don't think it was legal.
Right. So I don't think a coverage calculation was previously done.
Then the application should come in and say that this is to legalize something, and that's a different issue.
Well, I've always objected to that because I don't like seeing, I want to see clearly, and I write it in big letters every time I go to a house when I see something there, and I write legalize on it. It should say legalize versus asking for an approval. So the legalize, sometimes it says it, sometimes it doesn't.
Asking for approval at the same time, but just that you know that they built it.
Yep.
Oops. Do whatever you want, put in the packet. It's not going to garbage can.
Your point is well taken. There are things that I don't know how anyone else feels, but I think you and I are in agreement. We don't need to see the application portion in this plan because I never refer to it.
Anything else? A major discussion. When's the next meeting?
Board, whatever they want or don't want.
Oh, did we pick a next meeting date? There's some
September
holidays.
23rd,
No holidays there.
September 23rd, no.
That's it?
That's it. Have a
Have
good night.
Great
Stay
rest of the
healthy.
summer, guys. And women.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Good night. Good night. All right, I will get